Hi and welcome to Blue Pigment Podcast. This podcast is to help highlight the individuals that express themselves through creativity. I'm talking about audio forms of art such as poetry, music, singing, comedy, or even storytelling. The podcast usually follows a format where I introduce you to an artist and their creative way of expressing themselves. We then move on to a few adverts which you may want to pay attention to because there could be a discount code in it for you. From there, the majority of the podcast is a discussion with a guest on a form of art and the way in which they express themselves through that creativity. I hope you enjoy the podcast. If you do, please like, share and subscribe. I Am My Nation's Warrior by Marty Le Renard.
I am my nation's warrior. My life is in their hands. Won't question when I'm asked to ply my trade in foreign lands, or hold the line at home when darkness pounds upon the gate. All I ask for is remembrance, if falling is my fate. They were their nation's warriors, and now they have returned. They wear their scars inside and out, and medals they have earned. Some nights they wake up screaming, though their mind's too far to hear. It's smelling, hearing, seeing, feeling, old familiar fear. I was my nation's warrior, but now I march no more. Now I'm left to question, do I know what it was for? What all the blood and suffering adds up to in the end? What return on this investment of our brothers, sons and friends? They are your nation's warriors. Handle them with care. They're dangerous and vulnerable, and they'll always be there. So protect them from the people that wage war for greed and gain. And remember them, their families, their sacrifice, their pain.
If you want to become a patron of this show, please go to patreon.com/bluepigment. You will be helping me help the talent that I find along the way. Not only that, the podcast is an advocate for mental health and the positive message in which we want to send about mental health. So if you are a bit about that and you want to jump on board, then please become a patron at patreon.com/bluepigment. Would love to have you on board. And not only that, you'll get the chance to get some free stuff and be giving another big giveaway soon. To find out what it is, go to patreon.com/bluepigment, become a patron and get yourself some free stuff. Blue Pigment Podcast is sponsored by Huscarl. Go to huscarl.co.uk and use the discount code BluePigment for 15% off. Get yourself some t-shirts, stickers, baseball caps, hoodies, printouts, and many more products from Huscarl. Blue Pigment Podcast, sponsored by Huscarl. Hello, listeners. Today we're joined by Neville Johnson. He's ex-infantry Fusiliers. He was born and raised in South Africa. He now lives in New Zealand, and he writes poetry, and we'll go into detail in that in a moment, especially on his Instagram, which I advise you go and check out. Neville Johnson on Instagram. How are you, Neville?
Very well, thank you. A bit tired, but otherwise I'm good.
That's mega. So Neville's joined us today from New Zealand. I'm here in the UK, so the time difference would make it 5 o'clock in the morning where you are, and
just after 5 o'clock on a Monday morning.
Oh, Monday as well. It's still Sunday over here. I'm still enjoying the weekend over here. It's just gone 4 o'clock on Sunday. I've had a busy day. I mean, you've just started. I took my kids to one of these indoor play centers where there's like giant kids running around, just like complete anxiety festival of kids running around screaming. It was chaos. But that's why I'm tired. I mean, you're tired because you just woke up. Before we get into the poetry side of stuff, we want to talk about. I just want to talk about you being from South Africa and joining the British Army, and now being in New Zealand. I mean, you must have seen the world, travelled quite a bit. What made you go from living in South Africa to join the British Army?
I think for me at the time, I was living in an area that I just wasn't happy with, and I just felt the need to go and explore the world and just get out of the area. And it was my mom at the time that said to me, just go in and travel, get a ticket and get on a big plane and just fly and just go and experience and see the world. I had no plan B. I had no plan. I just knew at the time that I had to get away, which I did. So yeah, I flew into the UK, and I flew into it was an organized job. It was as a geezer that lived in Johannesburg, South Africa, and he organized all these jobs for these young travelers at the time. But that's more than 20 years ago. So you pay money, and he would get you a work visa, accommodation, a job, and everything. But what he failed to explain was the type of job it was. So it was in a food factory where you go in there, you start at 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. You don't see the sun, and that's where you work. So it was a job. It was an opportunity to leave South Africa. I went across, and then obviously over the years, I realized my visa was running out, and my options was limited into staying on. And then I had a friend that said, "Go and join the army. You know, you can stay." And I always had that desire to either join the army or the police force in South Africa, more so the police force. And so I thought, bugger, I'm going to join the army, you know, sign a contract for 4 years. And then, yes, I did my basic training in 2003. And then after that, they shipped me off to Belfast, of all places. So I was there for 2 years on a residential tour with the 2nd Fusiliers at the time.
So what age were you then when you first went to Belfast?
Ah, geez, I joined when I was 26. When I was 26, okay. I was, yeah, it was a late age. A lot of the blokes in my section, you know, they were all 18, 19, 20. I remember I was the same age as my section commander. He was 26. But for me, it wasn't an issue. I knew that I'm going to go and do it. I want to get through it. It wasn't an issue whatsoever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was 26, and then it was, I think, 2004. I was, I think, 27. So I think it was about 27, 26 when I joined the unit in Belfast.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just trying to gauge a bit more of your character. So obviously, being raised in South Africa is, depending on where you live in South Africa, you know, there are good places and bad places. And you must have grown up as an adult in South Africa and had to deal with adult situations. I know, like, a lot of people join the British Army at the age of, say, 18, and they've been living with their parents for the majority of that time. They move across from South Africa to the UK and go from one to the other. But being having to deal with South Africa as an adult, I think you probably already have quite a good mental resilience just by maybe and situational awareness and, you know, the presence of the abnormal, absence of the normal, you know, all that sort of good stuff I suppose that we get taught in the army. But being raised in South Africa in what I would class as quite a hostile environment, South Africa, just not because of crime, but even the bugs, the bugs and the animals, you know.
Yeah, it definitely helped and set me up for late in life. It was definitely a different environment, and I think with that life experience and when growing up, because I was a total different person. I had a different career. I was a qualified personal trainer in South Africa, and those first few years in the UK. So that helped, that maturity, that level of awareness, that definitely helped with what I went through for that short 7 years in the British Army. You know, even just growing up in South Africa, the maturity, you know, where it was a place where that you had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And that definitely helped me for what I went through in my army career, especially joining at 26. That's a late age, you know. But for me, it wasn't an issue at all.
So that's what one of my questions is going to be. So did you see any similarities between sort of being on the streets of South Africa and being on the streets of Belfast in the sort of mindset that you have to be in to sort of look after yourself and watch your own back? Or do you feel completely natural and comfortable in the, you know, in South Africa, in the place that you were raised? I've been to South Africa. I've been to Cape Town twice and Johannesburg once. And obviously being a tourist and in that area, I felt, you know, a bit not on edge, like somebody's going to come and stab me or something like that. But I definitely felt more alert just by being in, especially Johannesburg. Yeah, definitely felt I had to be more alert there. But did you find that alertness that you would have in South Africa was useful to being in Ireland?
Yeah, I would say, South Africa's obviously gone through many changes, and growing up in an environment, it felt normal. If you grew up in an environment where you're told to be aware of certain areas, stay away from this area, be aware that they might hijack your vehicle, which in other areas, other countries, that's not normal. You shouldn't be able to. You should be able to, when you stop at the traffic light, you don't need to, lock the windows or close the windows, lock the vehicle, or that's not normal. But in South Africa, you were told at a young age, especially at nighttime. I remember when I went to drive around, it was legally okay to, when you, like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, when you a red light at the traffic lights, you can drive across, because there's the fear of, if you're going to stop there, they're going to hijack your vehicle. So there was that level of awareness, like you've got to be aware in your surrounding, where you're at. Other areas much more safe. And I think with growing up in that environment where there was some aspects or some areas there was class as, you got to be aware. It's not that safe at that time of the morning. You just got to be aware, just use common sense. And I think that helped in guide with being on Northern Ireland, the fact that just don't go into an area, be aware of your surroundings. And I would say, that's definitely helped with that. Also in Iraq, because there was a similar area where you got to be aware where you step your foot, your 5 and 20s, where you walk, where you drive, So definitely helped.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm just going to give you one of my holiday story from Cape Town. So I did the garden route. There's me and 2 other lads, all paratroopers, tough lads I was in the car with. One of them was into mixed martial arts. Anyway, we was driving through the garden route, and we came across this car that had broken down. There's a guy sort of waving us down, and we were like, all right, we'll pull over. Like, stupid, naively now, we're like, why did we do that? Anyway, we pulled over, and the guy, we didn't notice until he came right up to close to the car, that he was covered in blood. And we were like, hey, are you okay, man? He was like, no, man, I'm not going to do the South African accent. But he was like, no, man, he's coming back. He's coming back. He's going to kill me if I don't have, I don't know, it was like 80 rand or something like that. If I don't have the money when he gets back, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. And we were, we had our holiday money. We just finished a tour, so we had lots to spend. So we were like, here, man, take 80 rand. Gave it to him, and he went back. But like, I just felt like, what situation was that guy in? His car was all smashed up on the side of the road. Someone was threatening to kill him. He's covered in blood. He just needed like this small amount of money. I was like, did we just, completely confused as the whole situation. I'm glad we got out of that one.
Yeah, that's one of the many tactics that some of them could use, whether it was real or not. But it's stuff like that. When you grow up in an environment where hijacking it's a daily occurrence, where murder and those things, it's a daily occurrence where it doesn't make the papers or the news. It's so often, and in an environment like that, it definitely helps you and preps you for when you leave and you go international, you go abroad. Your senses is quite high, so you're already aware of, well, hang on, I'm not going to go into that area because of what might happen. So you're just a bit wiser. But you learn the hard way,
Yeah, definitely. I learned. Well, it cost me 80 rands, so I learned the hard way there. He probably did it to the next tourist driving by as well, and a few after that. It's probably fake blood.
He's buying some beers afterwards.
It's a good story to tell, anyway. Hope he's all right. We'll never find out. So moving forward in your career, then. So we talked before we started recording about Iraq. So what tours did you do of Iraq?
Up to like 5, I think it was. It was in 2005. Went across, done 6 months in Basel Palace. It was quiet, we didn't identify my weapon at all. It was a bit of an anticlimax. And I think 2 years prior to us, had all these contacts. You would see all these videos, you would hear all these stories about them getting into contacts in Alamara and those places. But it was a good experience, seeing the culture, experience it. You had loads of indirect fire, mortar rounds and all that coming in. And another unit or team, they had a IED strike, and we had 2 blokes who got badly injured, and another 2 that lost their lives. And then we went back in 2006 for I think it was a shorter tour. It was a good experience to actually go there and experience the different culture and help and assist. But I think for us, that first tour, yeah, we were all geared to go. We all wanted to go to the action, want to go fight against the enemy, kill insurgents, and it was just a big, anticlimax of a tour.
I had a similar feel to that. Obviously, when I went to Iraq, I was 18 years old. It was the 2005-2006 crossover, so it was Telex 7, and didn't get any rounds. There's no firefights. We got shot at a few times. We had RPGs and Chinese rockets launched into the compounds. Nothing sort of too exciting. I think the one highlight for me was there was a bomb threat on a bridge, and so we got called to go and to stop the traffic. So there was apparently a bomb on a bridge. Got told to go stop the traffic. There was only 12 of us, and we got there, and it was on a motorway. So we stopped the traffic, but the whole motorway was just backing up, and people were starting to get out of the cars. That was probably as exciting as it got, was trying to hold back a whole city of people from crossing this bridge. But, for the majority, they actually cooperated and sort of joined us. So there was a lot of Iraqis that joined us to explain to everyone else that there's a bomb on the bridge. So you don't want to be going across it. But massive... I don't know what the term is, but like a buildup of frustration. Like, you're constantly on a height. You're constantly on alert. There's something bad's gonna happen. Something bad's gonna happen, but then nothing happens. And you just sort of
nothing happens.
Yeah, it's very. I wouldn't use the word frustrating because it's kind of good that nothing happens, but at the same time you're on edge for 6 months where there's no release. Yeah. So moving forward.
It's a weird experience, Yeah.
Moving forward from Iraq, you did Afghan as well?
Yeah, I did Afghan 2007. It was I think in April, at the beginning of the year. It was crossover, I think, between Operic, the end of Operic 5 and the beginning of Operic 6, I think it was. We took over from the Royal Marines in Sangin, DC.
Hectic then.
Yeah, it was different from any of the other Iraq tours. We got there within the first 18 or 20 days. We just, it was relentless attacks on the compound, which we had to defend for the 20 days. It was different from Iraq altogether.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Know what you mean. So moving past that, so was that when you left? Did you leave shortly after sort of 2007, 2008 time?
I stayed on for another few years. Went on a posting to recruit, a recruiting posting in, I think it was Woolwich, maybe. And then I decided that it was time to move on, because the battalion, I think, went through various changes. I changed a lot, and I knew it was time to move on. And then I'd done a CP course, close protection. And then I went back to Iraq as a private security contractor, and I've done that for about 2 years, in Baghdad, Basra, actually all over the place. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I never thought I would go back because I made this promise to myself that I'm going to leave all the guns, all the war, all that shit. I'm just going to leave it behind and move on and just live a different life. And then my best friend told me, he's going to go to this open day for this CP company, where they're trying to recruit people to do the course. And I thought, okay, cool, I'll just go with him. Nothing to lose. I'm going to sit with him. And within the first 5 minutes I was sold. I thought, yep, I like this. I'm going to do it. And put my deposit down. I don't remember how much it was. I know it was a lot of pounds. Put that down for a place on the course. Did the course, got given a job offer. My best friend, he went to Kabul in Afghan, and I went to Iraq. Loved it. It was amazing. I did that for 2 years, and after that, I thought it's time to move on, because my wife at the time, she was pregnant, and I thought, well, let's go to New Zealand, because she's from New Zealand, and I met her. It was in the last few years in army. That's why I met her, and I knew it was time to sort of leave all that malarkey and just start a family, nice quiet family life.
Yeah, man. That I can appreciate that. That must be a beautiful time. So living in New Zealand now, that must be living the dream. Is New Zealand the dream? Is that where it's
Well,
at?
it's definitely nice and peaceful and quiet. Yeah, it's yeah, the time zones can be quite difficult sometimes, but it's a nice quiet country. It's very much like, the UK and South Africa, they love the sport, they love the outdoor activities, they love the bungee jump, the cricket, the rugby, especially the rugby. You've got the All Blacks here, the mighty All Blacks.
Yeah.
Um, it's a nice place. It's a beautiful country to raise a family.
So going from that lifestyle of, what would be an alert lifestyle of being raised in South Africa, going straight to Ireland, you've done Iraq, you've done Afghanistan, you've been a close protection operator, and now living in a life that is like family orientated. I mean, how hard was the transition from being a warrior to now, dad in a happy, comfortable, safe life? I mean, is there times you reflect on the previous life? Is there things that you miss?
The transition, I would say, it was a struggle. Still to this day, a lot of things that I go through, it's a struggle. The transition from being, alert and being aware all the time, it was very difficult to switch off. You can't just go in and switch off and say, okay, cool, I'm gonna relax, I've got a job. I really struggled this first few years to actually just get to a place in knowing that I can relax, but I couldn't. When I'm going to a job, and I think I worked as a security guard, and they promoted me to a team leader, and I just couldn't switch off. I find it very hard to cope with certain things, because the team, a lot of people, and the people in New Zealand in general, are very relaxed, laid back, don't want to go and fight, they don't want to go and make a war. And I thought that was very difficult to understand, very difficult to cope with the fact that everything's so laid back. I wanted them to, okay, you need to be on time, you need to be fit, you need to be switched on, and I thought you can't force these things on people. That's their way of lifestyle is different. But over the years, it got better. But yeah, they said there's still elements of where I can't fully relax. I can feel my shoulders, it all tightens up.
Yeah.
I can't just fully relax. But over the years, it definitely helped. It definitely sort of, it got better. But it was that transition of leaving the armed forces, going to civilian sector in New Zealand, where it was the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's like I get this as well. So like now that I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, I went through this sort of phase of, before that, I was this warrior type who would volunteer to go in first, do this, do that, some sort of extreme and adrenaline sort of activities that I'd love to be involved in and part of. Just jumping out of a plane, for example, was something that I'd love to go and do and volunteer. Yeah, I want to go on a jump. And then I had the kids. My lifestyle completely changed. My lifestyle was like, you don't just think about yourself anymore. You've got to now make sure that you're still live and kicking, so that they're okay. So yeah, I completely resonate with and I look forward to the day that I'm no longer in a position where I can be deployed. If it comes up, it comes up. But in the meantime, I'll just keep on jogging and see what happens. Like we said before we started recording, if there is going to be some great war kick off, I'd rather it happen sooner rather than later, so that our children don't have to be the ones to deal with it. So the living in New Zealand, having the previous experiences, when did you start writing your poetry?
It was in 2019 that I started to actually put pen to paper and attempted to write a few lines. But it was the backstory. It goes back to Afghan, where I had my journal. I kept a journal. It was basically just to write down the amount of contacts that occurred as soon as we got to Afghan, where I would write down the amount of contacts, what caliber, what time, what date, for how long, and so forth. So I kept that, but then over the time I started to spool more thoughts on paper, and so it was just thoughts of the beautiful scenery, and then we got attacked and all this. So it was, but I kept it, I closed it. As soon as we left Afghan, I put all those things with my medals, everything in a shoebox away in the cupboard, and that stayed there for many years. And then 2019, I came across it was an ad on, I think it was either on Instagram or on a website of the Dead Reckoning Collective, which is an American publishing company run by these two veterans, American veterans. And so they had this ad for where veteran writers, where they can submit poetry to this anthology that they're going to go and print. And I thought there was an instant connection. I thought, what? I could do that. I could write something down and put it on paper and submit it, and I've got nothing to lose. And I wrote 3 poems. I submitted all 3. And it wasn't until a year and a half later that they emailed me back and saying that they accepted 2 of my 3 poems, and they're going to publish that alongside various other veterans for that anthology of poet warriors. But during that year and a half that I waited for the email, I started to write more poems, and then I think that's where the connection was. It's hard to explain. It was just, I felt easy. I felt at home writing everything down. I had no prior training or knowledge on other, type of poetry, stanzas, anything else. I just felt there was an instant connection to actually write that down, and it's been non-stop since.
And writing it down, what does it do for you? How does it help alleviate some stresses and strains or thoughts?
It definitely does, yeah. It definitely does. But at times, some of the stuff I'll write down, and then it would open up new memories of things that I think I've shut off over the years. Because a lot of it, especially with my family, because I've got 3 young kids, I don't really talk about it. They know that their dad was in the army. But my eldest daughter, she's not 10, so she knows a bit more. But I try not to talk too much about it because I don't want to expose them too much to war, to the negative side of things, but yeah, it's definitely a release. It's a release of many things. So anything that I kept in my back of my mind, because I don't know if it's the same with you. You see these things, you experience these things, and then I just lock it in my mind, and I don't really talk about it, and I move on. My thought process back then was, yeah, I'll think about it or I deal with it later in life. I always knew that it's gonna hit me, and I would have to deal with it, but I had no idea when. So with the writing, definitely helped. It definitely helped pave the way for recovery, I would say. So it does help.
Yeah, I could definitely. Yeah, it's like when you're on tour. Say, for instance, if something tragic happens at the beginning of the tour, so that you can function correctly as a soldier, you have to push that emotion down deep.
Yeah,
you have to push that emotion right down, because you've got a job to do there and then. And then, you get back in, there's some there's some other work that needs doing, there's stags that need going on, there's food that needs cooking. They've got so many things that are going on. So your emotions just getting pushed down. Then another situation happens where somebody else gets injured or killed, and you push that emotion, that keeps pushed down. When you get back off tour, I don't know if you experienced this, but what I experienced when I got back off tour is I hit the bottle quite heavy. Not like alcoholism, not like becoming an alcoholic, but just I would go out most nights and I'd want to be surrounded by people and have a drink. And again, this was just me, just pushing those emotions down, just keeping them suppressed. And eventually you can't keep that up inevitably. Eventually something will boil over. And it did with me. I had a night when I went out, had far too many, and woke up the next day and was like, I was emotional. This night I'm going to laugh about it now, and that's another defense mechanism. That night I was an absolute emotional wreck. I was crying my eyes out like a little baby about all this stuff just exploded out. But it needed to happen. And from there, I quit drinking for 2 years, got my head straight, and sort of got back in the game. I could self-analyze and reflect and look at myself and go, this is why you feel like that. This is why you think like that. This is how you could better yourself I'd already started writing some stuff down whilst I was in Afghan, and I still continue to occasionally write stuff down, but I personally enjoy reading poetry more than writing it. I do write the odd bits here and there, but yeah, it's a good way of sort of expressing yourself and getting it out there. And in some ways, I wrote a poem in 2008, but I didn't show anyone it for about 3 or 4 years. I didn't show anyone it because I thought I was going to get ridiculed for being a poet, and everyone wants the rugby player. Did the same as you?
Same. I would write things down and not show to anyone. It wasn't until recent years that I started to put things out on the internet, but everything went on Instagram instead of Facebook, because all the blokes that I served with, I'm friends with on Facebook. So I thought, oh shit, I'm not going to show it to them. We used to play rugby together, drinking together. We went to Afghan, Iraq, and all the islands together. They're going to take the piss out of me. Who's this bloody person writing bloody poetry? So I thought, I'm not. But nowadays I've got more confidence, and I'm a different character now. I'm a different person now than I was, say, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like when you get that chance to just be yourself, and you realize no one is actually taking the piss, and the ones that are taking the piss are my best friends who are doing it just to be the ones, the way that they are. And it actually brings you more confidence, and there's an enlightenment of not giving a shit what people think of it about you anymore. I think it comes with age and wisdom. You get to a certain age where you just think, I don't care what people think about me anymore. But it's so enlightening. You don't have to be this macho anymore. Which is what I struggle. And even still, the poems that I write are written in sort of like a macho masculine way, talking about brotherhood and, death is staring at us and we stare back the same. Like these sort of terminology I use in my poems. It's still trying to be cool and in with the lads, I guess. But I'm okay with admitting that now because of the age and the wisdom. And it'd be nice if we could get that through to some of the younger audience that are still in that time zone that we were in when we were younger, of pushing those emotions down, pushing them down. Yeah, it's just a waste of time. They're going to come out. So some of the poems I wanted to talk to you about, there was one you just mentioned before. So you were just talking about your kids, and there's one that came up. It was my son. You wrote, "My son, I hope you never experience war." Now, it doesn't read like a rhyming poem, but the poeticness is in the thought process. My son, I hope you never experience war. Because in a way, I don't know if the right word's abstract, but it kind of says that you've experienced it. You know what it's like, and obviously you do. And it's that sort of push that you don't want anyone else to experience the stuff and the emotions and that you've gone through. Do you usually have those shorter poems? You prefer shorter poems, longer poems? What do you prefer to write?
It depends, and it depends on the day. Depends where I'm at, my thought process. I would say it's a mixture of writing something down, a short line, a couple of words, and then just let it stew for a while. And other days I might find myself just writing nonstop, writing poem after poem, and then leave it and then get back to it the next day. I might edit, might keep a few, might take a few lines out. But I think with that one in particular, it was something very personal, because my dad, he served in the South African Police Force, and he took part in the South African border war. So he's experienced war. And I believe he probably would have wanted the same. Not for me to experience war, and I did. And years later, I understand now why. I get it. Why he is a certain way, why I'm a certain way, and I don't want my son to experience the same. I want my son to go and experience life, but I know what it feels like, and you know what it feels like to go to different places, and you're not there on holiday, and it's a horrible different feeling. I know what it feels like for me. You know what it feels like. You get into an area and it's a different feeling altogether. You can sense that the air is electrified, because there's imminent war. You're about to get attacked. It's a different feeling.
It's like an
when you fly into
intensity.
area. It is, yeah, it is, you know, and you've done all your training and you fly to an area, you don't know what's going to happen next, you know. Are they going to shoot the Chinook down? Are they going to attack the base? You know, are you going to step on an IED? There's this constant tension, this constant alertness. Even when you go to sleep and you wake up, it's a different feeling altogether. And when I wrote that particular line, my thought was, I don't want my son to experience what I experienced. You know, there's other things in life than just war, but if it had to be someone that experienced it, I would rather be it me than my son. You know, it was just those things, and I think sometimes when I write the short lines, they stick, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to add anything to it. I'm happy with it just being a line. But then, yeah, the majority of the time it would be a few more lines, and then sometimes I might, you know, steer off and write about a beautiful sunset that I experienced as a young kid. You know, I mean, a lot of stuff that I do right nowadays is not just about war; it's about other things in life as well. My family, my kids, my wife. You know, it's the things that I think I appreciate now more than ever, that I never appreciated when I did serve in the army.
Yeah, you touched on that. It's like that hypervigilance, being hypervigilant all the time. And then when you get back to the UK or wherever it is, it's trying to let go of that hypervigilance. So I struggled with this quite a bit when I came back, and it was in my mind. So being hypervigilant on tour, you think, if I get shot at now, where will I go? And you're thinking like that constantly. If somebody over there gets an IED strike, how will I react? Where is my med kit? Where is the stretcher? You know, you're constantly thinking, if this happens, what am I going to do? And then once you get back into the UK or in your peacetime environment, it takes a while for those sort of thoughts to sort of simmer down. So I had this at a barbecue. I envisioned the gas barbecue exploding and my family being in, you know, shrapnel with my family because the gas barbecue exploded. I've had other ones about being stuck stuck in traffic on the motorway. And I thought, if some terrorists just walked down the motorway now and just started dropping people in their cars, how would I react to this? And I went into this scenario where I was in this scenario, like in it. And I started to feel my pulse raise, my heart was going. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I thinking about this? When I could just put the radio on and listen to some calm, relaxing music or whatever. But it's that hypervigilance. You can't just switch it off. There has to be a calming process and reintroduced to normality. And for me, the softness of poetry does that. The calming sort of poems that I prefer to read does that for me. It's like, remember, you're not in a war. You're in a place where, you know, people can sing and dance and write poems, and, you know, you're in a peaceful place. That's what poems do for me. A lot of your poems as well, I would class as sort of motivational or inspirational quotes. You've got a couple like "Be calm, be the storm." Why did you write that? Be calm, be the storm. Is that like be everything? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Well, I think that's just with my time in the armed forces. We are trained to be calm during patrols, during operational tempo, but also be the storm. So on how you react to certain events. You know, be calm when you do the actual patrols, how you train, and then when something happens and how you react to it. And I think that also happens, or you can take that into real life events, especially with my kids, how you react with them. It just be calm, because and I've noticed, I'm not sure if it's the same with you, but if I'm a certain way and I'm grumpy and I'm aggressive with the kids long enough, they can then look at me and think, oh, well, Dad's a certain way. It's okay if I'm grumpy to my sister, you know, if I do things to my sister. So they can copy that. But if I'm calm with them and something happens and then I go into it and I deal with the situation, they can then learn from me. So it's both what I've experienced and utilized within the army, and also with my life now. It's be calm, but then be ready to be the storm as well, in certain aspects of life.
Yeah, the kids are like sponges, aren't they? They just literally absorb everything. They just absorb everything. And then they throw it back at you when you're least expecting it.
Yeah.
But that when I read that, be calm, be the storm, I read that as like, personally for me, I read that as, you know, be humble, be modest, but know that you've got it in you to be the warrior again. You know, all these people that have been a warrior, they're a scrapper, they're a fighter, they've got that in them. But just stay calm, because you don't, if you're at 1,000, you know, if your tempo is storm all the time, you're just going to burn out. So just relax. You know you've got it in you. You don't need to prove to the world that you've got the storm, because you know it's there. You've got the skills and the ability to go into that place.
Exactly.
But be calm. Just keep it under check. Yeah. All right, I'm going to just cover off on one more poem, because it was actually how I was feeling today. And listeners, I'm okay. I'm just saying that I was feeling a little bit away today. But the poem was no emotion, feeling empty, not happy nor sad, utter nothingness, emptiness fills the void, feeling numb to the core, all so trivial. I want to touch on this, but it's a very hard poem to touch on, because it sounds very negative, and it's like but in a way it's not negative. It's numb. It's in between negative and positive. It's just nothingness.
Not feeling. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's a soldier thing, or it's a me and you thing, and something you've experienced, something I feel the same, or if it's a warrior trait, or it's just a humanity trait, where sometimes you just feel not happy, not sad, and everything is trivial. Like, it doesn't matter.
Like, totally. I think it was that particular feeling was when we got back from Afghanistan. When I got back to the barracks, and we were still based in Cyprus, and I walked into my room, and there was nothing there. Everything was boxed up. We were told before we go on any deployment, you box everything up. So I was still living in the accommodation at the barracks. We got back, and I sat there on this a little bed, and that was a feeling I felt. I just felt numb. I was grateful to be back. I wasn't really happy. I wasn't really sad. It was this overwhelming feeling of numbness, just overflowing. And it was a feeling that I knew that I had to get on paper one day. It's hard to describe. And I'm not sure if you felt the same, but you've gone through all this training, you train hard, and you fight easy. We've always told, you train, you go, and you're in this different environment where you alert 24/7. And when we got back, it was that just like, is this it? There was no emotion. I wasn't sad, I wasn't crying. Maybe later that night, I don't know. But it was a numbness that I didn't ask for. It was just there, and it was a lot of this numbness that I experienced.
I think that's why I think I did experience the similar thing. And so to get some sort of, heights of adrenaline, or try and put some fire or energy back into myself, that's when I started, going out for a couple of beers, every now and again. Didn't work, by the way, if anyone's listening. If you're feeling that, don't go drinking. It doesn't work. But that was my reaction to that numbness. And I have felt that since and after, tours and stuff. Like, I don't know how badly your unit has experienced, or the figures on suicides, but every time I hear a British soldier has committed suicide, I get that same feeling. It's like numb, just like, this just like numb pain. But it's like absolutely hideous emotion. I'm shouldn't have. Maybe I shouldn't have used that as my last poem. Have you got another more upbeat one we could talk about? Well, I should just look. I'll just give. I noticed in your bio on Instagram, the bio link takes you to the Good Soldiers Don't Cry collection, like a book on Amazon. Good Soldiers Don't Cry, the Veterans Collective. Are you in that book then? Is that?
I am. Yeah, I'm actually in all three. What it is, it was self-published by another British veteran, and he approached me a few years back. It was during that first year that I started to write more and more, and I thought, buggers, I'm just going to put it on social media. I'm just going to put it out there. You know, it just felt this massive connection of this is me. I love it. This release, this confidence, a total opposite of what I felt at the time and over my years in the service. He came across this and he asked if I want to submit some of my stuff, and then he'll self-publish alongside other veteran writers. And I said yes. So, and then he approached me again. So there's three copies or three different books with different titles, you know. And yeah, I'm in all three.
So I saw I only saw two of them that I've seen. The Good Soldiers Don't Cry, and one was entitled Sweeping Leaves in the Wind.
That's the first one. That was the first one. Yeah.
That definitely sounds like the army.
Yeah,
get out there and sweep those leaves, but it's windy.
But it's windy. Or go on the parade square and stop and mop the parade square, but it's raining.
Yeah. That is the Army 101. So other than Instagram, and obviously you go to your Instagram, you can find the link to the books that are on Amazon. Where else can we find your work?
Basically all information is on my Instagram. So there's those three books, and there's another one which is the American book, which is it's called War and After, Anthology of Powered Warriors. I don't think it's in the link on my Instagram, but yeah, it's those two poems that I submitted that went in. And I think there's another British veteran that has got his work in there as well, but predominantly it's all American stuff. It's all American veteran writers, you know, so I've got my stuff in there. And then at the same time, the same company accepted my manuscript, which I submitted in the middle of last year. So, and I signed a contract, a book deal for my book that hopefully should be out by the end of this year. It's poetry on my time in Afghan and after.
So you've got your own book coming out.
I've got my own book coming out. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And they're going to publish it through the Dead Reckoning Collective, which is the American publishing company.
That's awesome. What's the title of the book? What's it going to be?
I'm not going to reveal it just yet, but it's going to be about my time in Afghan and after. And
no exclusives. No exclusives here on Blue Pigment Podcast.
Not just yet.
Oh, awesome. I did actually. There was I occasionally get publishers reach out. You know, people that are writing poetry books, and they reach out to me and they go, "Oh, do you know anyone that might be interested?" Did anyone message you recently?
Yes.
Cool.
Actually yesterday, our Sunday. And then I thought, well, hang on, what's this? Is it spam or what it is? So it was a female Navy veteran, American Navy. And then I looked into it, and then, so I replied back, and I'll be, submitting some other stuff. So thank you.
No worries. That's what I'm here for. That's what the podcast is here for, to try and highlight the talents and
Small world, man.
Put them in touch with other people. Yeah, she's only ever done American poems in a book, and now sort of she got in touch with me, and she's like, "Oh, I want to talk to not just Americans, but the allies that were involved in Afghanistan and Iraq." I'm going to send her a couple of poems as well, and hopefully we'll be there side by side in some book. That'd be awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, submit them. Definitely do that, man. Because it's good because I remember when we did deploy, it wasn't just the Americans. It was all sorts. We were there. They were there. Various other other allies, other countries on the ground at the time. Same with Iraq. Yeah, they were predominantly up in, I think, Baghdad area, and I think you boys, you were up in Baghdad as well.
I was I was in Basra.
Basra, okay.
Yeah, that was 2005, 2006.
Was it? Must have been at the same time that we deployed there.
Yeah, maybe possibly. There was definitely Fusiliers there when I was there, but I'm not sure which battalion.
Because it was definitely us. So I don't think the 1st Battalion deployed to Iraq at the time. I think it was 2nd Fusiliers. I'm pretty sure it was.
Oh, okay, yeah. Our paths have probably been quite close before then. Yeah. It is a small world.
Small world.
Well, it's been great having you on, Neville. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before the sun comes up, or is the sun already up?
Not yet. I said another thing, half an hour or so. But I know that my kids probably will be up shortly, and then I need to get them ready for school. Make sure that they eat their breakfast and get dressed, and make sure that my boys got his shoes on, because over here they tend to go to school bare feet, because it's such beautiful weather, and then or he goes to school and he comes back and he hasn't got his jersey and there's no socks and shoes, and he's left it somewhere, and it's a busy household. I'm not sure if it's the same with you, if it's busy as well, but it's definitely all over the place.
It's a hectic life being a dad, isn't it? It is, isn't it? It's a hectic life.
But it's amazing though, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. No, it sounds like you're in just coming towards the end of your summer. We're coming towards the end of our winter. We just had a storm roll through and everyone's fences are blown away. But as long as you're happy, yeah, great.
No, we're cracking on. Yeah, man.
All right. Sorry. Is there anything else you want to add before, or anything you want to say to the listeners before we call it a day?
What I can say is if there's anything that you want to do in a creative world, whether it be writing or painting or expressing yourself, just do it. Just start. Just take the first step. If you're unsure, just don't worry about it. Just write the first line, paint the first stroke with the paint. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want to express yourself, because you're not going to get this opportunity again. I believe, don't think you don't have the confidence. Just write, if it's a couple of lines, and that's how it started with me, and I'm pretty sure that's how it started with many people. That's got that creative side and they want to express themselves. Just take the first step and just paint or write or whatever your creative side is.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Neville. Really appreciate having you on. That was really insightful, and I'm looking forward to learning the title of your book when it comes out. And I'll push it for you when it does.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, and you. Thanks.
Cheers, man.
No, I really enjoyed that conversation with Neville just now. He's gone, but that was good. Very humbling for a guy to be brought up in South Africa, having to be hyper vigilant pretty much all his life, from being raised in South Africa, moving across the UK, going to Ireland, going to Iraq, going to Afghanistan, then going back to Iraq as a close protection operator. Definitely the reason why people have to express themselves when they've been hypervigilant for so long. It's a good idea to express yourself. And after I stopped recording, I was talking to Neville then, and we both mentioned how expressing yourself can save your life. This is why the podcast began, really, because of the suicide rate of veterans in the forces. And so my reach out to you now is the best thing to you to do if you're in a poor mental health state, or even if you're just having a bluesy bad day, is just express yourself in the best manner that you can. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoy it. There will be many more podcasts coming out. I've got a list in front of me of guests that are coming up. I won't mention them now, but stay tuned, and thanks for listening.
The opinions or views expressed on this podcast are solely of my own or the guests, and do not represent the opinions or views of anybody else or the Ministry of Defence.
Shish kebab, Shawshank Redemption, Chicago! You're out of there!